guys want to have?
We wanted to have 4. Yeah. And I was praying to God that I was pregnant when he got
that the kids aren't even Charlie's. So basically, Erika Kirk was left with no will money, no merch sale money, nothing. After Charlie Kirk was dated, he put that his children are going to get all the money.
After months of intense online speculation about who the biological father of Erika's children actually is, a judge just handed down a ruling that reportedly flipped her entire situation overnight. A court-ordered DNA test allegedly confirmed that Erika's former partner is in fact the biological father of her children. And that single confirmation triggered a chain reaction that Erika was completely unprepared for, because not only is custody of her children now potentially at risk, but she could also be looking at paying $20,000 every single month in child support. What's making this situation explode across every platform right now is what happens when you start laying the timeline out carefully. The DNA test results, the custody proceedings, and the claims Erika had been making publicly for years. When you place all 3 side by side, the judge's decision suddenly starts making complete and total sense. And layered on top of all of that is a wave of speculation that Charlie Kirk had discovered the truth about the children before his death and had confronted Erika directly, but was killed before he could act on what he found out. So the real question driving this entire conversation is simple but devastating. What exactly was happening behind the scenes that led a court to issue this ruling against Erika? And how long had the truth been sitting right underneath the surface waiting to break through? Here's what makes this situation genuinely extraordinary. Then Erika herself was the one who first drew public attention to the fact that something about her relationship with her children felt off. She did it voluntarily.
I intentionally, when I was pregnant, hid. Not because I was embarrassed, not because I didn't want anyone. Yes, we did keep it very private, but because it was a moment very sacred. I was growing a human inside of me, my baby.
She went online and openly bragged about deliberately hiding her pregnancy because she was, in her words, growing a new life. That statement alone made people stop and do a double take because it simply didn't sound like something that would come naturally from a woman whose entire public identity is built around being a devoted, faith-centered, traditional mother. The language felt constructed, the sentiment felt performed, and once people noticed that, they started digging. What they went looking for was evidence of the warm, loving, deeply connected Christian family Erika had been publicly describing for years. A family she claimed to have built from the ground up with Charlie. What they found instead was almost nothing. Outside of a handful of videos featuring Charlie and the children together, there is virtually no photographic or video documentation showing Charlie actively involved in the children's lives from the beginning. And that absence is genuinely strange when you consider who Charlie Kirk was as a public figure. A massive part of Charlie's identity, his brand, his values, his public messaging, was built around family and the importance of fatherhood. This was not a man who would have been casually absent from the early stages of his children's lives. And this was absolutely not a man who wouldn't have documented those moments. Charlie Kirk documented everything: his organization, his beliefs, his relationships, and his daily life. All of it went on record in some form. The idea that he would have gone silent specifically around the birth and early development of his own children, while being present and vocal about every other aspect of his life, doesn't hold up under basic scrutiny.
These 2 children do exist because I don't think Charlie would lie about having kids. Erika, on the other hand, as we've seen, lies like she breathes, like she has it down to an art form.
The mystery deepened further when Erika shared ultrasound footage. People who looked closely at that footage noticed something immediately. Charlie's name wasn't on it. The name displayed was Erika Franz Fay, which raised an obvious and immediate question. She was already married to Charlie Kirk at the time that ultrasound was taken. Why would the documentation reflect a different name entirely? Once that detail started circulating, the broader pattern of the children's limited public visibility suddenly made a very different kind of sense. And because if those children biologically belonged to another man, it would take almost no time at all for people looking at clear photographs to notice they bear no resemblance to Charlie Kirk whatsoever. And that brings up another layer of this story that people online have been pointing to consistently. There are photos of the children that have appeared publicly, but they are blurry, angled away, obscured, or cropped in ways that prevent any clear view of their faces. Critics argue that for a woman who built her entire public persona around being a proud, devoted mother in a traditional Christian household, the systematic absence of clear images of her children's faces is a choice, and a very deliberate one. But here's where the timeline collapses entirely under its own weight. When Erika has repeatedly and publicly insisted that she never dated seriously, never married, and never had children before Charlie Kirk entered her life. That has been a consistent part of the personal narrative she has presented. Except the receipts circulating right now tell a dramatically different story, and they are becoming increasingly difficult for even her strongest supporters to explain away. A video from a 2015 Trump rally that Erika attended with her ex Tyler Massey has resurfaced and is getting enormous attention. In that footage, Tyler and Erika are visible together. But what stopped people cold was what appeared to be a young girl standing between them. The body language, the positioning, the physical closeness. To many viewers watching the clip, it looked unmistakably like a family unit. A father, a mother, and their child. Not a couple and a random child. A family. And that observation, once made, could not be unseen. Now, fast forward to December 2025. Erika shares a photograph of what she describes as her children, reportedly to establish that she was with them on September 10th, the day Charlie died. But viewers looking at that photograph immediately noticed a significant problem. The children in the photo she posted looked nothing like the children people had previously associated with her and Charlie. And the ages didn't align either. As far as public knowledge goes, Erika's children with Charlie were approximately 1 and 3 years old at the relevant time. The children in that December photograph looked substantially older, closer to 8 years old or more. So, which set of children are actually Erika's? And if the children in that photograph were significantly older than her reported children with Charlie, where exactly did they come from?
But what I will say is, when I lived out here, I was here for 5 years. I never dated here because I saw vicariously through my roommate how terrible it was. Somehow getting drinks was the replacement of having coffee. And
the question becomes even darker when you factor in reports that have circulated about Erika allegedly using children for staged photo opportunities, using other people's children to reinforce a traditional family image she was carefully constructing for public consumption. If those reports have any substance, then the implications are serious. It would mean the children people believed were hers and Charlie's were never biologically connected to that relationship at all. And it would mean the entire traditional family narrative she built her conservative public identity around was fundamentally fabricated from the start. Because here is the mathematical reality that critics keep returning to. Charlie Kirk has not been in Erika's life long enough for them to have children together who would currently appear to be around 8 years old or older. The timeline simply does not produce that outcome. Which means if those older-looking children are genuinely Erika's biological children, their father is someone who was in her life well before Charlie ever was. And that brings us directly to Tyler J.T. Massey, Erika's former partner, and now, according to widespread online speculation, the man the court-ordered DNA test has reportedly identified as the biological father of her children. Tyler Massey was a professional baseball player, accomplished, attractive, and by all visible evidence, someone Erika was deeply and seriously involved with. In one of her own resurfaced videos, Erika spoke about Tyler in terms that went well beyond casual dating.
Storytelling. So we're here at Bill's Burgers in New York City, and right near this very table was the first time Dad met Mama.
She called him her amazing and incredible boyfriend and described him as her best friend. The warmth and depth of feeling in that video was unmistakable, but it goes further than that. Engagement-style photographs of Erika and Tyler, taken barely a year before she reportedly met Charlie, surfaced online and spread rapidly. The photos have the visual and emotional quality of a couple on the verge of building a permanent life together. People looking at those images did not see a casual relationship winding down. They saw two people who appeared to be heading toward marriage and family, which makes it entirely reasonable, not conspiratorial, but genuinely reasonable, to consider that if Tyler and Erika were that serious, they may have already started a family together before the relationship ended and Erika's path crossed with Charlie's. So, when word began circulating that a court had ordered DNA testing for the children, the online reaction was immediate. People pointed directly at Tyler Massey as the most probable biological father, and the reporting that has since emerged, claiming the test confirmed exactly that, landed in a conversation that had already been building toward that conclusion for months. Now layer on top of that what happened in the immediate aftermath of Charlie's death, because Erika's behavior during that period has generated its own significant wave of questions. If these children are truly the product of her relationship with Charlie, and if she was the grieving widow she publicly presented herself as being, then the days immediately following his death should have reflected that grief, including grief shared with the children who had just lost their father. Instead, according to reports and documented public appearances, Erika was on the road almost immediately.
Story of the woman who raised Erika Kirk. Her mom, Loretta Franceby.
Yeah, that's Erika Kirk getting an ultrasound. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not that woman has really ever been pregnant. Now, I've been pregnant 5 times. The first was a miscarriage, gave birth to 4. So you bet your ass I zoomed in on that ultrasound screen. And this is a close-up of the screen, which led me to do a deep dive into the stages of pregnancy, which I've done, back in the day when I was pregnant, but it's been a while. It's hard to see a lot of detail in that picture. Based on her stomach size and the size of what we can see, it would be safe to presume this is the viability ultrasound, that they determine if there's a heartbeat, which they can do as early as 6 weeks. And this is what it looks like at 6 weeks, and this is what it looks like at 8 weeks. Wanted to compare that to her picture, but I don't have the technology to zoom in on it. I wasted 2 hours, except I learned that at 9 weeks they hiccup. I didn't know that.
Flying between states, traveling with a camera crew, building momentum for public appearances, performing a version of grief rather than living inside it. Critics have made a pointed observation about this pattern. If you are a mother whose children have just lost their father, your first instinct is to be with those children, to hold them, to help them process something they are too young to fully understand. The fact that Erika's immediate response appeared to be movement, cameras, and public positioning rather than private grief with her family has led many observers to one uncomfortable conclusion: that the children's biological father is alive, present, and capable of being with them while Erika pursues other priorities. Because if Charlie was truly their father and he was truly gone, there would be no one else. She would have had to stay. Once the receipts around the DNA testing and the custody proceedings started spreading online, the reaction was swift and intense. Because suddenly the carefully constructed story Erika had been presenting for years, the devoted Christian wife, the traditional family built from scratch with Charlie, the woman who never dated or had children before, started visibly disintegrating under the weight of documented evidence. People began going back through every interview, when every public appearance, every photograph they could find, trying to identify what was real and what had been staged for an audience. Online commentary captured the mood sharply. One person wrote, "Where are the kids? Probably being taken care of by their biological father." Another went deeper. "I've wondered to what extent this marriage was ultimately a financial arrangement from which both Charlie and Erika benefited. If the children don't exist as presented, then they didn't exist that way when Charlie was alive either." The story goes much deeper and isn't just about her. That second comment, once it started spreading, opened a question that the online conversation has not been able to let go of since. If the children were never Charlie's, did Charlie eventually find out the truth?
You had a baby in a house when you were 13 years old and we can't find you. By the way, where's the baby buried? I asked that question to her. And she said what happened after she gave birth was they called her mom and they said that she's got to go. I said, how do you know the baby was dead? You're telling me they moved you into a room and they induced labor after you said, I don't want to give up my child.
And because when researchers started examining the timeline of Charlie and Erika's relationship in the final days before his death, what they found was not the picture of a happy, harmonious, traditional marriage Erika had been publicly describing. Something had clearly shifted between them. The dynamic in those last days looked notably, visibly different from the image that had been presented. Erika herself confirmed a detail that has since taken on enormous significance in light of everything that has emerged. She openly stated that Charlie did not sleep in their shared bedroom the night before he died. He slept instead in the children's room. Erika and her daughter occupied the master bedroom. When she was pressed about this, her explanation was that Charlie wanted a good night's sleep before an important speaking engagement the following day, and that sleeping away from Erika was the best way to achieve that. That explanation immediately struck people as hollow and unconvincing. This was a man in his own home, in his own bed, with his own wife. If he needed quality rest before a significant engagement, the logical answer would be sleeping in his own comfortable bed, not relocating to a toddler's room. The only scenario that explanation makes intuitive sense in is one where Charlie and Erika had experienced a serious rupture, where sharing a space with her had become something he actively wanted to avoid. And what Erika described happening the next morning only deepened that suspicion. According to her own account, the only interaction between Charlie and Erika on the morning of his death was a brief moment when he entered their bedroom to collect his wedding ring and a necklace before leaving the house. They didn't speak meaningfully. They didn't share a goodbye. They didn't kiss. For a traditional Christian couple whose entire public brand revolved around the sanctity of their marriage and family bond, that description of their final morning together is strikingly cold and strikingly distant. People online began putting the pieces together. Charlie sleeping in the children's room, a wordless retrieval of his ring the next morning. No physical affection, no meaningful exchange. It reads less like a man preparing for a busy day and more like a man who had reached a breaking point the night before, possibly after a confrontation that had fundamentally changed what he knew and what he was willing to accept going forward. Critics have speculated that the confrontation may have been about the children, about what Charlie had discovered or confirmed regarding their biological origins, and that what Erika described as a quiet, unremarkable final morning was actually the aftermath of the night their marriage effectively ended. Now, with the custody ruling added to everything else, people online are increasingly convinced they are only seeing the outermost layer of a story that goes significantly deeper. The DNA confirmation, the $20,000 monthly child support figure, the custody implications, and the timeline of Charlie's final days, the behavioral patterns in the immediate aftermath of his death, the systematic absence of clear documentation of the children, the engagement-era photographs with Tyler Massey, the Trump rally footage. Every individual piece is significant, but assembled together, they form a picture that raises questions far more serious and far more troubling than any single element alone could generate. How much did Charlie Kirk actually know in those final weeks? How long had he been sitting with suspicions that he was only beginning to confirm? And if the night before he died was truly the night their marriage finally collapsed under the weight of everything he had discovered? What does that mean for every other question surrounding the circumstances of what happened the following day? The custody ruling didn't just create a legal problem for Erika. According to the people following this story most closely, it cracked open a door that may lead somewhere far darker than anyone has yet been willing to fully say out loud.